Welcome to episode 5 of the Draw Last podcast. With us today, we've got our co host Swag. We are
Hello.
missing Jordan today as we have kicked him off to make room for a special guest, JustaGuy. How's it going?
It's going great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you here. And the reason that he's here is today is Father's Day. And so we're, just as we did last year, we are bringing on some Hearthstone dads to share their stories and have a good time. So going right into it. So just a guy, tell us a little bit about yourself in relation to Hearthstone and kids.
Sure. I suppose for the people who are listening, there might be one or two out there who have some clue as to who I am. But my claim to fame is that I am the world's foremost game designer creator. So the factual statement about that is actually that I have two kids who are both on Team 5 as game designers. So how much of their accomplishments and their success and their lot in life is my responsibility can be debated, but I would imagine that somewhere along the lines, my life was a bit of an influence on them and may have hopefully in some small way assisted in putting them where they are. So
None of it
that's
would have
me.
happened if not for you.
No, I get corrected often and get told, of course, the fact is that unless I created my two children by myself, I am actually the world's foremost game designer co-creator because my wife would probably claim to have some responsibility there. But the fact that she rarely ever goes on Twitter other than to check what I've been doing and to make sure I haven't embarrassed everyone in some way or gotten the kids in trouble at work. At least I have some sort of a presence as minor as it is that I guess allows me to toot my own horn if we can do that on this pod. I don't know if that's okay or not.
I'm
Horn
all
tooting?
for self-aggrandizing.
If we're not allowed to brag on this podcast, then I don't know why I said yes.
God
That's
forbid I ever actually
one of my
accomplish
favorite
anything I have.
things to do, actually.
Yeah, if I ever actually accomplish anything grand in the Hearthstone universe, I did make Legend again this month.
Nice.
Last month, so I am the only one in the household who actually can make that claim. So that typically is the case.
The T. What did you use?
You know what? I get bored really easily when it comes to Hearthstone, so I do tend to sort of drift from one deck to another. A lot of sort of Frosty K. I was playing some Control Priest that actually I drifted away from. I tend to settle around Diamond 5 as a comfort level, and then that sort of gives me a chance to play around with a bunch of decks and not really feel that there's anything at stake. Until I find
Dad Legend, as some call it.
Yeah,
Indeed,
Dad
I was
Legend.
about to go there.
It's there. I get there. Yeah, that's a monthly visit. Whether or not I actually grind the rest of the way to Legend or not is usually a matter of whether I have the time and the energy, if I can stay up late enough or not. But yeah, it tended to be from Diamond 5. I finally did make a reasonable run to Legend using Control Priest, which God knows it's a fun deck as long as you don't run into another Control Priest, because that's just the most miserable, horrible experience in the world. Actually had a conversation where I was bitching to my son about it as he was walking by and said, man, these Control Priest mirror matchups are just awful. And he says, you know, Dad, sometimes you have to take responsibility for your own bad choices.
Wow, very sage words there.
There you go. Absolutely sage words.
Yeah, so were your kids kind of always gamers? Did you introduce them? What's the story with that?
So I'm in my real life, I started up a small business in 1996 that's a software and computer shop. So I actually had great designs and dreams of playing video games for a living. And back then it was sort of really focused on gaming software. And it was one of the few businesses that actually existed that allowed people to trade in their PC games. So it was sort of like if you imagine sort of what video stores were back then, that you'd, go home with a game, you'd play it, you bring it back, you trade it in, you get something else. So I had, dreams of playing video games all day while people came in and gave me their used games, and I sold them and made a little bit of money and went back and forth. And it actually turned into a real job where I had to do real adult things and work my butt off to try and keep it going. So that store, that little computer shop is still in business 27 years later. And yeah, so I sort of had that from the beginning. I was a gamer from back in the days where, my dad came home with the original Pong system. So going from there to, the typical advancements in Atari 2600 and, but my sweet spot was PC gaming. So I tell people that I accomplished one of the great frauds in history when I was 16 years old, where I convinced my parents that they needed to spend $3,500 to get me the cutting edge IBM PC that came with not one but two 5.25-inch floppy drives at the time, and a delightful monochrome monitor, which was everything you could have hoped for, because I told them, of course, that you had to have one of those back in 1983.
Yeah, to do your homework, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, I was
yeah.
going to
Yeah.
major. I was going to go to college and major in computer science, which I did, albeit too briefly. But boy, was it fun for gaming. So loading up, the original Infocom games, the text-based adventures, and then sort of going from there. Where I remember my first dungeon crawler was an unbelievably dated, horrible linear graphic game called Oubliette, which was French for dungeon. So go figure. But yeah, we're talking. Dude, I'm old. Maybe you didn't realize it when you asked me on, but I am not the demographic you're going after. But that's okay. That's all right. But yeah, from there, we went forward, and obviously you jump a little bit ahead, and my kids come around, and they're only a couple years apart, so they're very close, which is really a great thing. And we started doing Pokemon cards when they were, really little. And they obviously started with the cards are cool, but then it did actually turn into, how do you play the game, and something that they collected and they actually played, and that advanced over time to Yu-Gi-Oh! And we would actually go to tournaments, and I would be the oldest guy there who would beat up on a bunch of 14-year-olds just to make me feel like I actually had some skill in the ring. But yeah, and sort of it went from there. So the Pokemon games, the Yu-Gi-Oh games, and then obviously all the PC titles and everything that they had growing up, I'm imagining had some influence on actually putting them where they are now.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think that you really influence your kids' interests as they grow up, either by like having strong interests yourself that they want to then like move towards because they see that you like it, or sometimes the opposite, right? If you're really into sports, maybe they avoid it like the plague. So I think in either direction, I think it can have a strong influence on their interests.
Sure. I think having everything in front of them, if they found an interest in it, that it existed in the house with all the tech and the games and everything to begin with. I think part of it, I think the real joy was in finding that it was something that we really liked doing together. And
Yeah.
and it wasn't just, dad sitting in front of the computer and telling the kids, hey, go watch a video or something. We actually did a lot of that together. And being able to set up, I mean, one of the Hot Wheels computers that I set up for them was one of their first PCs. And setting that up and loading, the Putt Putt series or the Pajama Sam games or the Freddy Fish games, those are, I guarantee you, my kids would tell you those are some of their fondest memories. What was being able to have all of that back then. And it was because, we enjoyed it together, and watching them get into it was really cool. To try and get to the point where, you're not one of the parents as the kids get older who basically says, hey, you got to get off the computer every now and then because there's no way you're going to make a living playing video games. And then you find out you might actually be wrong. That apparently, as confusing as it may be to an awful lot of parents out there, sometimes you actually can make a living off of playing video games. Now, I don't think everybody out there whose aspirations are to be a world famous multimillionaire streamer is going to actually pay off. No offense, Swag. Don't take that personally. But it
Only a
definitely,
little offense taken.
that's okay. You're
Just a
out there with a
slight amount, slight amount.
heck of a lot more viewers than I have, since I haven't actually started streaming yet.
Yeah, that's the first step, isn't it?
I mean, that would require that I actually stream, which
That's true. When's a swag stream coming?
maybe later tonight. Actually, I was thinking about it.
Well,
I don't tell anyone. Okay, good thing we're not recording or anything. But
right.
I've actually been playing a lot of standard lately, and I've been having a lot
Whoa.
of fun with it. So
Sell
I
Gonna
might
go
start
mainstream.
playing a lot of that.
You're not
Oh,
going to be able
no.
to get as angry as you do if you just play WoW.
Yeah, no
How are you gonna
content
rage bait
anymore.
people?
No content.
How are you gonna rage bait people?
Yeah.
Said he'll have to fill the bill. We'll just-
Yeah. Wild's in good hands as far as rage bait goes. There's plenty of people in line.
There are. There really are.
Oh.
And I've had to wade through it every now and then, because unfortunately, angry is okay. I get frustrated. I get short-tempered. We're all human. It's just upon rare occasion you get the ones ones who overstep the bounds and start making comments about, devs and how they don't care and, disrespect the community and, have no idea what they're doing. That sometimes strikes a little bit of a personal note with me. So
Right.
upon rare occasion, I've had to, do what dads do, even though I have my kids who yell at me for, basically being on social media at all. But, it is one of those things that, I watched it happen. If you want a little bit of a serious side for a minute, as my kids were growing and getting into gaming and everything, my daughter, Cora, who will one day, I have no doubt whatsoever, run the entire company, but give her a couple more weeks and I think she'll be there. But she went into casting. So she had been an avid Hearthstone player. They had open casting calls where they had people submit videos of them casting over a pre-recorded match, and she ended up at the same point that I believe Raven and Soddle got brought in. She went and was doing tournaments there, and they liked her so much they kept her going for several years doing different tournaments, and she traveled the whole world. But if you've never been a father who has a 19, 20-year-old daughter at the time who's on camera at these wonderful Hearthstone events with the chat stream right on the side of the screen, and everybody out there who basically feels completely invincible and saying anything they want to when they're typing it on the internet because apparently their address doesn't come up along with it, which I believe should happen. You really get a rude awakening as to what it's like out there for an awful lot of women in the industry, and it's
rough.
It's awful. And yeah, we had to watch with chat completely buried. They couldn't see it after a while because you really wanted to reach through the screen and have some real one-on-one time with some of those people. But I'll give you the serious dad experience when you're watching your kids go through something that not everybody is ever going to have to experience.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
unfortunately, way too common in esports.
Yeah.
Way too common in the industry. Way too common for the employer. Way too common for the companies. Way too common. Yeah. We don't have to wade too deep into it. I know that's serious stuff, but it's out there and it needs to be addressed. And I do think that it's true all over the world in an awful lot of businesses and industries, but obviously because gaming is, look, there's three of us here, and I think we're probably all of the male persuasion, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you do have to obviously understand how difficult it is for some of the other people to go through what they've what they've gone through to get where they are, and it's still a big problem.
For sure. And it kind of raises the question, like, how do you go about, like, reconciling that? Like, not maybe to the extreme of the chat, but, like, when people do, like, call out the devs, or, like, they come after your kids and they add them and stuff, like, how do you cope with that? How do you deal with it?
With a lot of internalized frustration and anger, which I guess you get used to as an adult for some things. You remind yourself that my kids are grown. My kids are adults. And as much as you want to always protect them and always, make sure that you make life as easy as you possibly can, you understand that there's nothing my kids can't do and there's nothing my kids can't handle. And for the love of God, one of the few things that I would hate for some of these people who really have a reckoning coming would be, running into me would be rough. Running into my daughter would be worse. And she can certainly take care of herself. And I have no doubt whatsoever that she can handle things. And sometimes, you don't want to overstep, which my entire social media career is about overstepping. You do want to let them handle things themselves. I am an enabler from a ways back. So you do want to try and do what you can. There is a point where, I'm unhappy. The devs don't know what they're doing. I could design cards better than they do. Okay, great. Go ahead. Do it. You think you can do better? Do it. Get a job. It's when they actually get personal about it. Somebody once actually sent emails, just threatening, horrific, awful emails to my daughter's personal email account. That's a point where now you're stalker. Now you're insane. Now somebody needs to make people aware of who you are and what you're doing, because there's some significant issues going on that is way more than just, I'm sorry, I had a bad day, I got mad, I took it out on somebody that I really wish I hadn't. That happened. Hopefully not too often, but it's happened to all of us at times. We all have feelings and emotions, and you do the best you can. As a parent, like I said, it's a matter of trying to make sure that, I stay in my lane. I try more than I used to. I don't want to make my kids' lives more difficult and more problematic, and sometimes ignoring the person that's out there that should have their mouth washed out with soap is better than actually confronting them. You don't want to give them the visibility. You don't want to give them the forum to actually, have somebody of note. I mean, am I of any consequence whatsoever in the social media universe? Goodness, no, I'm a blip. But, my daughter is sort of more of a semi-celebrity. So getting her involved with some of these, if she wanted to, she would. I'll still keep an eye out because mental health is important. And you're not always sure, even as adults, even in my ripe old age, it's always good once in a while to check up on people and see, you doing okay? It looks like you're having a rough time. And the people who think that what my kids do for a living is go to hearth cards and punch in, stats and bring up a pretty picture and go, this sounds like a good card, are out of their freaking minds. You have no idea what they have to do. It is stress and it is grind and it is work and it is unbelievable.
It's just one line of code.
Yeah, it's just
It's just one line of code.
Oh, look, I can create cards. I can do that job. Sure you can. Which, of course,
if opponent is winning, don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I've said, most of the cards technically were my idea from the last 4 or 5 expansions anyway. So I do try and contribute as best I can. They have to, Final Design's got to tweak things a little. I can't take responsibility.
So we have you to blame for the demons.
No, that's Final Design again.
You didn't.
I just said
you
that.
didn't do funnel cake, did you?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
I eat funnel cakes. I may have.
We were gonna
way,
cut this one a little short, otherwise.
No, like I said, with some of those, upon occasion, usually what happens is I'll make a suggestion for, hey, wouldn't this be a cool card? And the kids will immediately beat it down and go, no, that's terrible. That's awful. You have no idea. You couldn't balance a card with a scale. It's just, you got nothing going on. And then give it about a year or so, and all of a sudden there's a variation of that card that turns up. And I'm sure it's completely coincidental. I'm sure somebody else actually created the card and it had nothing to do with them. But once in a while, there's a little bit of suspicion there that there might be something going on that I actually contributed to, but I don't think I'm ever going to get acknowledged on that.
And if you do, it'll be in flavor text.
I would accept that. I would accept that wholeheartedly. The fact that I actually got a card reveal, the fact that I actually got a card reveal.
That was amazing.
I don't want to overstate it, but I do sincerely believe it was the single greatest card reveal in Hearthstone history. And I'm not the only one who's ever said that. Well, it's fair enough. I think it's warranted. I think it. Sometimes you really got to step up to the plate and say what's true, and I do think that's true. Now, the fact that my daughter had an expansion after that I didn't get a card reveal for, I thought was very hurtful. But I guess we can't. We don't want to go out there. We don't want Alkali Lake. I've messaged her on a handful of occasions. I've sent her fruit baskets and stuff, but that second card reveal hasn't shown up yet. So I'm assuming it might be an issue with my phone number or email. She might have a new phone. It's something like that. But eventually, when I deserve it, when my 12 or 15 or so YouTube videos, when I start streaming and actually get into the content creators program.
So that was fruit baskets.
Yes.
Okay.
She's got a nice pool. She's got a very large dog, so dog toys are always good. A bark box is sort of a nice thing to shoot over there, but she hasn't come out and said yet whether or not bribery will work. I'm just hoping.
Absolutely. So kind of talking about, because you were talking about how it's been a rough road for them to get where they're at. This is kind of where I maybe wish Jordan was here to ask this question, but kind of talk about what was their path into getting into Blizzard and becoming a developer, because I know there's a lot of people out there who are aspirational about that, and obviously you've got a pretty unique perspective on that.
Sure. So the story behind that. I mentioned that my daughter ended up at 19 years of age entering Hearthstone had a So You Think You Can Cast competition where they had anybody who wanted to submit themselves casting a pre-recorded video. They could record it, send it in, and if they thought they were good enough, they might give them a shot. She got flown out to California for whatever event they were doing at that time. Gave her a chance live and liked her so much that they had her come back. And for the next 3 or 4 years, literally all over the world. She went to China, she went to Poland, she went to France. She was doing events everywhere. She was doing the Tesla Collegiate series, which was really fun to watch because watching the college students is a little bit of a different experience than watching the pros all the time. So she was doing that and was doing a really great job, but it weighs on you after a while because you're never entirely sure what the next gig is that's going to come around. So the dream hacks were really great. I even went with for a while. And my son, Sage, when Cora would go to some of the events, we would, if his school time was not so intense, we would send him with. And that was really nice because, you've got a young girl traveling alone to these, male dominated gaming events. And obviously, as parents, you have some significant concerns. So having her brother go along with was really a nice thing because it was a good experience for him. It gave her some company. And like I said, my kids have a very good relationship. It's actually one of the greatest blessings that I can tell you I have in my life, that they are as close as they are, which is great. So she goes from that to sort of getting to the point where I think she's having some thoughts about what she's going to do going forward, because casting's a rough job, especially when they get rid of most of the events that unfortunately happened. But at that point, somebody suggested they had an opening on the Hearthstone team, and I think it might have been Dee, who said, "Hey, you should apply." And I don't think she really had that on her radar, and I'm not sure she considered herself as qualified because she didn't really have any design experience. But she did. But she applied, and she had to do a design test, and she had to go through. Eventually they liked her application and her video interview so much that they flew her out to California, and she went through a full, unbelievably long day of interviews and testing. And I mean, they would put cards up on the screen that hadn't been released yet, and they would ask, "What's wrong with this card? What class would you put this card in? How would you balance this card? Is this balanced?" And it was intensive, and she was fantastic, as I expected, and they hired her. And she's been killing it ever since. Approximately 2 years after, they have an opening on the team, and my son, who's in college at the time, but is on the Hearthstone team at his college and is, as I've said before, an absolute savant for the game. So when he had traveled with her to some of the different dream hacks, he wasn't playing competitively at the time. He wasn't focusing on standard. He would play an awful lot of arena, which is what he liked doing. So he would travel, and you'd be like, "Hey, Sage, you got to leave in 2 days. You got to submit a deck list. Have you put anything together?" He wouldn't have even started at that point. Give him 48 hours, and he'll have hit legend, have all of the different decks put together to submit, and he'd go to the tournament, and the first time he went, he finished top 8. So that's where he's coming from with his skill set. There was an opening on the team. They had, as they always do, thousands of applicants. And out of those thousands of applicants, my son was the only one hired when he got hired. And for those who like to suggest that my daughter had anything to do with it, or that nepotism somehow is actually a thing at the team, you're an idiot. My daughter had nothing to do with the interview process, had nothing to say. Everybody else on the team was involved in interviewing and discussing it, and he got the job he deserved because he earned it with his skill and his ability. And here we are. So my kids are where they are because hopefully I had something to do with giving them the background and the interest that put them in that direction, but entirely because they are the people they are, with the skills that they have and the drive and the intelligence, and they're just killing it. Like I said, the fact that I think Cora has been as front and center as she has in the different expansions is because she's that comfortable and that good in front of the camera, and she's that sharp when it comes to talking about everything that's involved in putting these expansions together. So
she's been killing it, I gotta say. Nathria was an incredible expansion. I was a big fan.
I think it was so much. There's so many people involved, and it's never a one-person show when it comes to putting it together. But they've also had some turnover on the team, and they've also had some periods of time where they didn't have the people in place above that had been doing an awful lot of work. Dean left, and they didn't have a game director for quite a while, and Liv left, and they've had a lot. They've had a lot of work and a lot of stress, and being able to produce good content. It's not always a home run. That there are always going to be cards that have to have a second look taken, and there's always going to be balance patches, but that's part of the process. And anybody who thinks that means they didn't do their job or they don't care about their job, you know what, give it a shot.
I hate that.
Give it a shot.
Oh my god, that's one of the worst ones. Like, oh, they don't care about the game. Like that's literally what they do for a living. I hate that
like
so
people
much.
Like somebody would suggest that they spend all
the
day at work having 2
conspiracy
lunches
theories people
and
come
rolling
up
around
with
in a room full of money. It's like, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's funnel cakes, not money. Get it right.
Yeah.
So, who started playing Hearthstone first, you or your kids?
So actually, my son,
Okay.
I believe he ran into it because Crip was doing a stream and he had saw the game there and thought it was really cool looking. And it was at the point where they were sort of drifting away from Yu-Gi-Oh! And goodness knows there's still,
Bless them.
oh man, bins and bins and bins of tens of thousands of cards that are floating around. That just kills me whatever. It was fun. It was good for the time. But they were looking for something else to fill the gap. And he saw it and he brought it to Cora, who was in college at the time. And she had a fair amount of time on her hands in between classes with her schedule. So she got into playing it pretty routinely. And then they were both in beta at the time. When they got into it, shortly after it came out of beta, they brought it to me. And I went, oh, this is kind of cool. And I started playing as well at that point. So yeah, pretty early on, although heaven forbid you ask me the name of any expansion or pretty much any card, current or past, I'm going to have a hard time. But that's just dad stuff.
Yeah, dad brain.
Names are irrelevant.
Yes, every Pokemon has Pikachu.
It means no one can blame you for a card if you can't remember the names of any of them.
Exactly.
It's easier that way. The funniest thing is that when my kids actually will come in like backseat pilot as I'm playing, they've learned that you never say play out the card name. They have to say play out the 3/4 with Death Rattle on the left, because then I know what they're doing. It usually works well in standard. I enjoy Wild, but don't get to it very often. I actually think Duels is an amazingly
Duels is wonderful.
fun. It's
Mad underrated.
I mean, there's only so much time in the day. I'm not as old as I am. I am not retired yet. So I do actually have real life work that I have to fit in. And then occasionally it's the other games that cut into the little pool of time you have. You know, lately it's been, boy, Diablo 4 just.
Yeah, are you going to be playing Diablo?
Yeah, I've dipped my toe in the last couple of days, leveled up a couple of different characters to around 10, and I just sort of, I always have alt-itis. I've had that since way back. I would make 20 different characters and never reach max level just because I get bored. It's like I do with Hearthstone decks. But doing that, I still play Marvel Snap because it's such a quick fit it in and go type game. And standard, I still find time to play it. I'd love to have a little more time. Battlegrounds, I enjoy Battlegrounds. I'm just awful at it. So at some point, you know, I'd love to focus on that a little bit more. But, you know, my kids are very good and very skilled at the game, but not the most patient when it comes to being able to show dad how he might get a little bit better. I think maybe once they're parents themselves, they might develop a little more patience. At least I don't ask them how to help me get on the internet. So
yeah.
They never had to play tech support for the parents.
No, I mentioned that I was when before we moved and we were outside Chicago, I was the Blizzard Midwest branch free IT department, because guaranteed if they had problems with the computers they used to do work on, they certainly never reached out to the Blizzard IT department. It was me. I paid a lot of money to upgrade those systems, new graphics card, double the RAM, more storage. I took care of all that. And I'm still waiting to see compensation come my way for any of it. So
yeah, even like some Activision Blizzard stock or something.
Wouldn't that be something? I'd just like to get a refund on my accidentally purchased golden mini set from the last expansion. That was traumatic enough.
Yeah.
Son of a gun.
That's a UI issue.
Yeah, you know, I'd bought the regular mini set, went back to take a look at the golden set just to see what the cards looked like, and somehow must have clicked on the 10,000 gold, because I was like, oh, look, you can buy the mini sets with gold. And sure enough, I did. And boy, I take responsibility mostly.
You have that much gold?
Yeah. Oh.
Accidental.
I hoard gold. I hoard Hearthstone gold, and I always I haven't played it in a bit, but I used to hoard Overwatch loot crates too. So being able to realize that eventually the economy is going to collapse, civilization will fall into ruin, and Hearthstone gold is going to be the only currency that actually still has value.
Gotta have your bunkers.
Yeah, you can't just get rid of it all because you know you're going to realize that you need it. But yeah, 10,000 gold was, that's what somebody said. Well, you know, if you're like me and you never have 10 grand, well, you couldn't have made that mistake. So.
They're not wrong.
It's true.
They are not wrong.
I wanted to ask, because I know you mostly from Twitter. You kind of undersell yourself. You got Twitter bangers for days, I gotta say. I wanted to ask, how did that sort of come about? Did you like intend to like become this like Twitter personality and like sort
Yeah,
of
kindly, I think,
be the dad?
yeah, I think
You
sort
know?
of meme dad poster is nicer than shit poster or
Yeah.
troll, which upon occasion I do. While I understand the possibility that those are correct terms, I do resent them just the same. I when you're comfortable with technology, and I've run a business for a very long time, and so marketing, and doing, which is more Facebook than it was, but I was on Twitter very early on, but didn't really gain much traction as far as the business account goes. And eventually, at some point, I sort of drifted back to it as it was certainly becoming much more prevalent. And I was sort of, it's like any social media. It's like you can tweet to nobody and see if that's okay or not. Maybe something catches fire and you develop a little bit of a following, but it's difficult to do unless you're somebody of some note and interest to begin with. So I started, and it was my interest, and obviously I was in absolute intentionally attempting to sort of piggyback a little bit off of my daughter's notoriety because she's very visible on Twitter and obviously has a very large following. So I would certainly read what she was doing and some of her posts, and being able to interact with her as her dad was sort of unique enough that people got a kick out of it, because I would joke with her and she would joke about being all irritated and, dad, would you get off the internet and type stuff. And it sort of went from there. And then I started sort of creating some posts that I thought was funny. It was certainly in line with my sense of humor. I created a fake resume that I put out that became very, very popular as I pretended to apply for Blizzard jobs. And I started doing a lot of things there that started getting a lot of people to say, wait a second, who is this guy? And it just sort of grew from there. So, I mean, that's where I got some visibility. I don't think I have nearly as many followers as I deserve. I think Twitter alone,
True.
I should have somewhere in the hundreds of thousands. I mean, let's be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have people who go,
You're so
feel pretty
modest.
today,
Hundreds of thousands? I'd say
hundreds of thousands.
millions.
Oh,
I'd
well,
say
that's very,
millions.
I'm not
If
saying you're
you're
wrong.
listening to this, if you listen to us and somehow don't follow him, go follow him right
Oh
now.
yeah,
Oh
for
my,
real.
You
goes
count.
without saying. I'm hilarious. I'm an absolute gem. There's no arguing about it. My videos, when I find time to do them, are just absolutely stellar. And I don't think anybody out there is doing stuff that's as stupid as I am. So it's that sort of demographic. I'm that old guy gamer who actually has a connection to the current audience, the current demographic, the current games, and knows enough about it that I can at least sort of interact without embarrassing myself tremendously. So, I mean, that's sort of where it came from. I got into it because I enjoyed it. And honestly, the one thing I've said a handful of times on some of the different pods that were nice enough to have me on is that when you're my age and when you're interacting with much, much younger people, that if they weren't sort of welcoming, if they weren't being sort of, hey, this is really funny, that was great, I'm sure I would have quit. If the Ben Heathstones and the Ridiculous Hats and the Blizzlet podcast and the Squelch podcast, if they hadn't thought this guy's really funny and this guy's really good and we should do some stuff with him, I would have stopped. I mean, I remember early on something that I posted, it might have been the resume that I posted on Twitter that got so much attention. I think I went and posted it to the Hearthstone forum on Reddit. And
Oh boy.
oh my
Oh boy.
goodness,
That was your
did
first mistake
they
opening Reddit.
Yeah.
did they roast me, cringe, and worse
I
than I've ever read. And I just sort of went, oh,
I'm not even subscribed,
I'm
frankly.
gonna go away now and try not to embarrass myself anymore, because apparently I'm as dumb as I think I am.
They did you a favor.
Yeah, but the community, that's the biggest shot. Because yes, there's the outliers. Yes, there's the tools that need to have somebody take them out back to the woodshed and give them an actual serious talking to. But the community as a whole is so positive and so encouraging. They want you to do well. They want you to succeed. They want you to find people to follow you if they think that what you're doing is actually funny or interesting. And really, it's that support that really is the reason I'm around. So if you want to blame anybody as to why I'm out there and still posting after all these years, it's those people. It's the ones that are nice to me and actually make me feel like I, did something sort of funny and clever. And I think we're all looking for that amount of validation. We want someone to say, hey, I like watching you. I like listening to you. You're cool. That's kind of neat. You don't have to be the greatest pro gamer in the world to be interesting. You can do something funny and clever. And still, at the same time, have your own perspective that I think brings to the table some things that maybe nobody else does. So, especially, like I said, I'm gonna at least tout myself as being about as unique as they get when it comes to what's out there, just because I guess I'm a little bit different than the average, but I'm not everybody's cup of tea. So if you don't like me, that's okay too. I won't take it too personally. It's all
But
right.
you're
You
wrong.
don't, yeah. I mean, you can still follow me. You don't have to unfollow. That's mean. That's cruel. That's
Yeah.
abuse. You know, I started a series of PSAs where I'm helping, you know, the podcasters and I'm helping the streamers. And I've got one that'll be coming out that'll mention that unfollowing people on Twitter is abuse. And you really
It's
need,
true. It's true.
it is. It is.
JustaGuy is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you.
And the AARP. I guarantee that is the sponsorship. As soon as I start streaming, as soon as I turn the darn camera on, which there's been some friends that have been trying to push me into it for a very long time. I forget about OBS. I've got the Twitch studio fired up. I'm gonna do it with the overlays, and it actually looks pretty good. It's just, you know, I'm not sure I'm built to stream in front of 3 people, and we'll see. We'll see. I mean, as long as somebody could guarantee me thousands, I'd probably do it.
As long as you're presented by AARP and not Timeshares of America.
No. Well, you know, the Hearthstone AARP audience is huge.
Oh yeah.
It's gigantic.
An untapped market.
I pitched, when I created my resume, I pitched a senior designer position that I should be hired for. Except it wasn't a senior designer position. It was a senior designer position where I would actually work to craft the game in a way that was easier for the senior community. Because I'm telling you, and I've said it to Blizzard before, and they don't want to answer my call. It is an untapped market. The seniors have money. Yes, it might be a fixed income, but they have money. And if you do not make the font large enough for us to read, and if you don't make the rope take longer for those who are age verified, then you're missing the boat. So these are the things that the senior game designer would address. And unfortunately, here I am still trying to push for a job that they don't admit actually should exist.
I mean, it just sounds like Blizzard is ageist. I mean, how can they continue to print combo decks that require you to have not boomer APM?
You know what? I don't want to suggest anything that might not be true. I will tell you that I have not gotten hired for approximately a dozen positions I've applied for at Blizzard. Most of them in my IT profession, but I've actually applied for some non-IT related jobs. Game director wasn't one of them, although I probably could have thrown one in just for fun. But it's yeah, you know, I is my birth date a concern? I hope not. I think I've got another 6 months to a year left in me that I could still be productive. So, you know, figure once I finish the onboarding process, then I go to retirement. But still, it could be fun for a while.
I mean, you've heard of nepo babies. Are you ready for nepo dads?
We're out there. I don't know that there's many of us, and I also suggested that you need to get on this senior designer position quick because the audience is dying.
Get in on the ground floor.
Dying. There is a timer running, and you are missing the boat if you don't do something soon. That's a fact.
Yeah.
You could sell Hearthstone caskets that look like the box.
I'm telling you, sponsoring the pickleball championship.
There you
would
go.
Make a ton of sense.
I can get in on
wanted
that.
to bring in that demographic. We are out there, man, and we are watching pickleball.
Blizzard sponsored community bingo.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's no reason to ignore any possibility. I mean,
pickleball lessons.
You know, you don't have China money coming in. You might as well have AARP money coming in. I'm giving this stuff away for free.
True.
Somebody,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Whether or not they're listening over at HQ or not, I probably not. My kids don't even listen when I'm on a pod, but you know, I do think there's some significant ideas here that would actually make sense, and you really do have to get on it soon.
The real question is, do they listen outside of pods?
I have, upon occasion,
Cora and I are oomfies on Twitter, just saying.
I mentioned before that I try not to overstep the line, but upon occasion I have. There have been a couple of occasions that very polite communication was made.
I was actually going to ask if that ever happens.
take down things that I used, maybe some Blizzard logos for. I've mentioned before that I've done stuff that I thought was so absurdly ridiculous that nobody in the world, ridiculous. That nobody in the world would think I was actually being honest. And no, I can.
That's never the case. Trust me.
When you get to be my age, you don't think you overestimate people very often, but apparently I still do. So when my son got hired on the team, I made a post about, how I now have more influence on the game than ever before. And if anybody wanted to get a class tweaked a little bit, maybe get a card named after somebody, just reach out to me, and for a couple of bucks, I'll hook you up. And there was actually somebody who worked at Blizzard on one of the other teams who replied to my soliciting money to influence the Hearthstone card design future. Actually called me a piece of on Twitter.
Oh no.
Who thought I was serious. And it was like, dude, seriously? I posted that ridiculous hat, congratulations, well deserved, getting the associate community manager's position, couldn't be more deserving. That he makes between $295,000 and $1.5 million a year. And there were people correcting me. There were people posting the actual general information for the job posting because they thought I was serious.
I did a fake news story about the designers refusing to push the fix bugs button and the print good cards button. And then I took a nap and I woke up to a DM from a fairly big designer on the team saying, "Hey, your post was funny, but you gotta clarify things a little bit." I was like, really?
I've had the PR director who follows me on Twitter, which I'm assuming he does it partially because
to keep tabs,
mostly to keep an eye on me. I think it's more for that reason than because hopefully he genuinely enjoys my content. But yes, I do have the occasional post that I have editors in this very house who will come and quickly say, take it down, take it down, take it down. I don't go there too often. Upon occasionally, I underestimate things, which happens. Like I said, I didn't think anybody would take it seriously that an associate community manager would make up to $1.5 million a year, but I was wrong, and that does happen. So I do need someone once in a while, proofreader, quality assurance, to check on me and make sure I'm doing things appropriately.
And very politely send you a cease and desist letter.
That has been the case. Please let your dad, actually it usually goes through the kid. Please let your dad know that, yes, we thought it was funny, but he has to stop acting like he actually works for the company, because he doesn't. And he needs to stop putting things out on company letterhead because it looks official. And yes, that does happen. And I don't resent any of it. They are absolutely correct. Sometimes I've gone a little bit too far. So that's okay.
Have you burgled some official letterhead?
I have. You know what?
No comment. No comment.
My design skills are massive, and I can work publisher like nobody's business. I can copy and paste a logo with the best of them. But yeah, like I said, when the PR director actually goes, "Hey, could you?" Yep, no argument.
Yeah,
no debate.
Yep.
Down. I've got a couple of videos that'll never see the light of day again. That I think one of them, the record was, I think it was up for, might have been like 16 minutes that I posted it, and it was like, nope, take it down. But that's okay.
Yeah. He hit the bell on your channel.
Yeah, I think I'm on a speed dial on the desk. There's that red button on his desk that he hits it. JustaGuy did it again. But that's okay. It's about fun. And I really do despise having to explain that I'm joking about stuff.
Oh my God.
Really, I've done a video about it that's on my channel.
Yeah, it completely ruins the joke.
It just kills me to have to actually go, "Hey, everybody, I'm not serious. You don't have to get mad. Stop calling me names. It's okay. It's fun. That's what you're here for."
I mean, that's how you know it was a good post.
Mostly. I mean, I can post things like Hearthstone sucks and the cards are bad and I'm bored with the game. But there's a lot of people that post that. I try to do stuff that's a little bit more interesting. And I'll never be one of the serious, unbelievably detailed, here's the top 10 decks right now and their win percentages, and here's the cards that are going to most likely be adjusted in the upcoming patch. No, never. Oh, good Lord, the amount
You're
of
not
effort you have
allowed to
put in.
share the insider info.
What inside?
It-
Upon occasion, the walls are thin. I may hear something, and I do have to make sure, because Blizzard's never sent me a non-disclosure.
Here
which
are
you
the
would really
cards
think
that
they
are
would.
going to be nerfed. You heard it from me. Yeah.
I have at times. But the problem is, I could literally tomorrow, I could post a card that's coming out in the next expansion, and nobody would believe it anyway. There's no chance.
But we'll know.
I've done card reveals that were fake. I've done, I've done all kinds of posts. The hard part is that I'm not always kidding. I do like to occasionally take a stand on things that I find to be important, and there are serious issues in this world that upon occasion, not that I think my weight's going to make a big difference, but you'd like to get your voice out there. The problem is nobody knows to take it seriously. And that's the hard part of it. It's like I posted something in one of the discords about like I was going to do some kind of like an IT support program for the pods, because I've been helping a lot of the podcasters, and a lot of them are friends with my kids, so that they reached out to me when they needed help with a system or new computers, whatever. And I was happy to do it. And I was like, hey, maybe I should formalize some of this. And the first thing I got from one of the ones who knows me really, really well, the first thing he got was, is this a bit? Is this a joke, or is this serious? It's like, no, this was serious. I understand credibility is absolutely one of my problems when it comes to trying to actually, I'll never be able to run for president. It's never going to work.
Well, there goes my next question. Yeah.
What are some funny stories about you and your kids, RE Hearthstone?
Oh,
have there been any like notable like dad like?
Yeah, well, usually that usually comes right before finding out I got in trouble for something. The funniest, and I really think it's worth revisiting every now and then. My card reveal, which I thought the video I put together was absolutely fantastic to begin with. The fact that it was sprung on my daughter live on Heart Queen's stream while Heart Queen was doing a card reveal, the reaction was so genuine and so annoying and so difficult, and just watching it and watching her shrink and cringe, and it was just incredible. So that was, and it was done good naturedly. It was that's the kind of really, really good practical joke that doesn't hurt anybody. It was funny, and people could relate to it, because dads embarrass their kids all the time, and there's no way that anybody has a hard time understanding that.
It's in the job description.
Yeah, it is sort of something you feel that you need to live up to. But that's the kind of, yeah. No, most my kids and I, their opinions may vary. You'd have to ask them directly. I think we have a good relationship. I think we have a lot of quality built up over the years with all the things we've done together. And yet, I don't think I have too many more mistakes left in me that they're going to just sort of forgive and let me redo anyway. But for the most part, the experiences have been really good. And watching them get to where they are, and watching them become just amazing people, just rising to the occasion. Because like I said, it isn't just let me think up a card. Ooh, I'm good at this. It's a tough job, and it's stressful. And the meetings and the productivity and the work and the balancing and all the behind, you don't just come up with a card. You've got to make it work in the system. You've got to make it work so that when it actually goes into play, it functions correctly with the back end that they have to tweak. It's a difficult job. And, thankfully it's been successful and rewarding. And like I said, I have no doubt that at some point, the hierarchy is going to turn over at the company, and there's going to be, a couple of kids up there. I don't know that I have any others on the way that are going to join them, thankfully. But I think that they can do just about anything they want to.
It's a good message for Father's Day there. Swag, do you have any other questions before we transition over?
No, that's it for me.
Well then, without any further ado, let's get into the mailbag. We asked you guys, what did you want to hear from JustaGuy? And Diego Centric on Twitter asked, my wife and I are trying to break into the field of game designer creators. What is the secret to your success? And do you have one more in you?
I wrote an article about my favorite subject, which is me, and again, sort of self-aggrandizing, but I think it was in my humor that I liked it, and at some point I may post it. I was trying to get it published, but they were sort of a little bit like, oh, we'd have to do interviews with you and the kids, and that's a lot of work, and I'm not sure you're worth it. I understand, nothing personal. But and it was sort of like that. It's like how it was titled "How to Become the World's Foremost Game Designer Creator," and eventually I may put out, like a 10 lecture series that you can subscribe to. Maybe give you the first one for free and then try and make some money off the others. I don't know if there's a secret. I think it's maybe a bit of a perfect storm, a confluence of what I was interested in and the things that were available, and my kids being who they are at the same time. I do think that if you support your kids, and I do think that if you encourage, and I do think that if you tell them that within reason, anything they want, they can do, they can accomplish, then that's the best thing that you can do as a parent. Be there for them when they fall, be there for them when they screw up, hope that they understand there are consequences to decisions, and that's part of growing up and becoming an adult, but giving them the opportunity when they're at the age that they deserve to do anything they want, try anything they want, and you're supposed to be there. You're not supposed to be there telling them that's stupid, that's dumb, you're never going to do video games for a living, it's just not going to happen. You know what? No matter what your preconceived notions are, no matter what your upbringing and your biases are, I think that it's important to try and give them the chance to find the things that they like and then help them when you can. The fact that, a lot of the things that they enjoyed doing were things I enjoyed doing was a great coincidence. So that's the secret. Yeah. Encourage your kids, be there for them, help them when they screw up, bail them out of jail every now and then if you have to. Not that I think.
Be there. Awesome.
And as far as, is there another one on the way? Not unless I adopt. If at some point anybody else on the Hearthstone team actually manages, any dad out there or mom out there actually manages to challenge my dominance as the, I will consider adopting. I would probably line up Celestalon. I think is potentially available if I had to. I'd have to check with his parents. But yeah, I would probably line up with adopting one of them and making sure that I at least got my tote board a little bit higher.
Swag, you want to get adopted by JustaGuy?
I kind of wanted to say something, but I decided not to. Yeah. We'll talk late. We'll talk later.
There's baggage that comes with it. It's not all peaches and herb.
I mean, he did say that it's important to share some interests, and I mean, who better to learn the ways of Twitter from?
Yeah.
At some point, I would probably join somebody on a stream, although, like I said, we'll see.
That would be fun. That could be fun.
I see. Like I said, as long as you don't mind somebody going, you go, wait, we need to play the jailer. I'm sorry, which one? Who's he? The red guy. Play that one.
The big guy. The big guy.
That's easier.
Sitting in the chair.
Yeah. At some point, I imagine if you ask the average Hearthstone player, how much fun would it be to teach your parents how to play the game? Sometimes it sort of goes in that direction. But
I tried once. It did not go well.
Yeah.
My wife, who has been as supportive and as big a fan all these years with my kids, she has a basic idea of the game, but does not play it and has started the tutorial a handful of times. I'm sure she would love to have me sit down and go through showing her, but boy, that's a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
That is a hard thing to do without it becoming just
mad at someone. Yeah.
No, especially if you're playing against you.
Oh yeah.
Me. No.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on. It was awesome having you on. And
can't think of a better Father's Day guest, frankly.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, that's very nice. Hopefully the recording worked and we don't have to do this all over again.
It did. It did. I promise. I promise.
Yeah. But it was awesome having you on. Do you have anything to plug before you go?
Just me in general. If you'd like anybody out there who's lasted this long with me on the show and doing far too much talking, would actually like to find out what I've been doing, you can follow me on Twitter at JustaGuy66. My YouTube channel is JustaGuyHS if you want to check out the videos there. I actually think I've got some quality content. It's not super interesting, but it's short. Usually I try and keep it short. So if it's really dumb, shorter is better. So I've learned that over the years. So, but no, I think try some of it, take a look. If you don't like it, it's okay. You gave it a shot. It's sort of like tofu. Maybe it's not that great. You gave it a shot. You can say you did, and then you can move
But
on.
it's
It'll
good
be
for
fine.
He has the
Yeah.
certified Swagwar vouch for what it's worth, which is a
That's
lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
That's a hard stamp of approval to acquire.
Yeah, true.
If I could get up to that 100,000, I'd be great with those followers. I'm still not quite there. I'm just a few short.
Yeah, a handful.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We will see you guys next time. Peace.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.